And thank you all for joining us on this eve of Thanksgiving here at Prepper Talk Radio on K-Talk Media, AM 630. Thank you for joining us. And we're happy to be here on this pre-holiday. Hopefully you're all having a similar week to me, just a kind of a slow, lazy week. Scott, you?
It's not slow, it's not lazy, at least not yet. My sleep has been
right.
violated.
Have you made the announcement here? I don't think so.
I think, yeah, we did.
Did you?
So we have a new prepper coming to the world in late April, early May. So in the Mr. Preppercon household, we will have a baby girl.
So happy for you.
First kid.
Especially having the oldest being a daughter is the best.
That's what people keep telling me, but those people don't know the difference between having
That's
a boy
true.
and a girl first.
That's absolutely true. But, you know, I speak from personal experience. You have the built-in babysitter, right?
Yeah, but that's not fair for that kid.
It's not, but who cares? I mean, it wasn't fair for me. It wasn't fair for my older brother. We were the babysitters.
So, see, that's the point.
No, look at it this way.
You said that with disdain in your voice. Wasn't fair for me.
No, you're right. Dang it. You're right. No, look at it this way. So, as the oldest in the family, you know, my oldest was the oldest on both sides. She was absolutely spoiled. But what did she learn?
She learned that she had to do everything.
Yes, but what else did she
I don't know. I was never the oldest in any scenario.
Well, I'm not the oldest either. But I think, it depends on how you approach it. As with anything in life, it depends on how we approach it, our point of view, our attitude, especially with prepping. I mean, that totally applies to prepping. So you're going to have a daughter who's going to be well prepared. That's what I'm trying to get at here, Scott, is going to be well prepared for life.
Nice save. That's all I can say is nice save.
Well, thank you. Anyway, so welcome to the show. I'm Shane. This is Scott. And, of course, our sponsor is Survival Medical, survival-medical.com, the only first aid kits tougher than nature. And you can find them at the Layton Sam's Club this week. I'm not sure how long they'll be there, but they're at the Layton Sam's Club. Go check them out. Get your hands on them. Perfect time to stock up on those for Christmas presents. These are the best Christmas gifts. And we will eventually have our Christmas gift show. Maybe we should do that in a couple of weeks.
We will. We definitely need to. One of the nice things I love about Survival Medical is that it gives me just a little more peace of mind. You know, I've got the on-the-move kits in each of the cars, and I was actually at an expo this last weekend in St. George, and that's a good long drive for me. You know, living in Bountiful, well, a good long in-state drive, right? Staying within the boundaries.
Great,
but one of the things I found is a lot of the people I talk to. Just kind of checking things out and trying to help them get better prepared. I was actually there helping a shelter company, and one of the number one things people were like, oh, you know, I need a better first aid solution. Mm-hmm. The other number one thing, I guess the top few things were, I need a better solution for first aid. I need a shelter solution. I've never thought of a shelter solution. And I'm like, that's the first rule of 3. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When you think of all the emergency rules of 3, that's one of the number one.
Well, when you have a home, you know, it's something you don't think about too much is having some kind of portable shelter.
Well, in psychology in school, we learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do you remember doing that?
No.
No?
But yes.
So it was.
I remember it, but I don't remember
in my undergraduate program, it
particularly.
was taught in business psychology. It was also taught in just sociology and psychology. So a lot of the different classes I took, it kind of got covered. And one of the major things was we need our own place, right? Mm-hmm, we need shelter.
A place to call home. Is that what
place to call home?
Okay.
And so, you know, I think that kind of ties well into what we're going to be talking about today, but I just found so many people didn't have what they needed. And if you don't have what you need, it's really hard to regain a semblance of a quality of life. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're fighting every day to find somewhere to stay, if you have to move every night, you know, that makes it really difficult. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I find a lot of preppers do is they'll get so inundated with all the news, with all the things going on, with all the conspiracy theories. And I should say that's a small percentage of
Yeah, I would think
world.
that aren't a large percentage that are as I refer to myself as being fairly intense. I don't think there are as many as intense as I am, and I know there are others obviously, but that's what we're going to kind of talk about this first segment and see how long that goes. But sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, no, going along that though, it's one of the biggest things I find is people are missing that balance. They're not well rounded. A lot of the people I talk to that are getting prepared, all they focus on is their food storage. Oh, I got to get more food. I got to get more food. A lot of people I talk to, they're like, I just need water. I just need this, right? They've got their one thing. Oh, I just need lots of ammo. That's all I'm going to get. I feel like I'm really well rounded. Yeah, but I don't have a good balance. And that's what I really want to focus on. The rest of this year is really getting a better balance.
That is, I totally agree with you 100% on that. I find that balance is difficult. Yes, food storage should be first, water should be second, shelter is got to be right there as well. But if you have a home, I mean that can be a fairly costly addition too. Whether it's a Vital Dome or whether it's a tow behind trailer or something for your vehicle. That's a big decision. That's something to really consider.
Well, I look at the value of skill sets more importantly than an actual shelter.
Exactly.
If you can build a short-term shelter, you're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, but once you have your new baby daughter here, things will change a little bit.
Priorities will shift.
Yeah, priorities shift a little bit. I've got 5 kids. Yeah, they can kind of take care of themselves, but I'm still the one responsible for them to provide shelter and everything. Trying to stay as focused on track here and not get too distracted here. What I wanted to first say is I am thankful for water filters. Like you said there. Boy, am I thankful for water filters. What a great time of the season to be thankful. I mean, we should always be thankful. I like to think that I'm a fairly grateful person. We'll kind of get into that a little later on. But I am very thankful for water filters in particular. What are you thankful for, especially you preppers out there this time of year? 801-254-5855.
I thought we were holding the thankful till the very, very end of the show.
Well, not the very end. We're going for safe rooms, right? The very end of the show, we decided this.
If there's time.
Okay, right. No, exactly.
So we talked about this last night and this morning, as we're finalizing everything for the show. And we're like, yeah, let's kind of focus on, quality of life, things we need to be doing, how to find a balance, right? And then all of a sudden,
I'm jumping into the gratitude.
And the idea with gratitude is let's hold off till the end.
I think for me is before we get too deep into that, like you say, and hold that off a little bit toward the end, is that quality of life for me has to do with being. We don't always, us preppers, we don't always have everything we want, right? I mean, there's always this huge checklist of I need this, 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 and this, and this, and it literally never ends. That checklist will never end. And so we've got to be grateful in the moment. And so that's where I guess I'm kind of leading here and sorry to kind of hijack this, as I usually do.
90.99%.
Hey, I've got the mic. I got the control board.
We both have mics.
That's true. You got a bike. But I've got your volume control here.
True. But I can just come over and hog tie you and take that one too.
Yeah, and so please feel free to redirect me as we go here, talking about quality of life. So we're talking about shelters, about having the essentials and the necessities. I'm trying to focus on there, Scott, so feel free to bring me back.
No, Kate, I wanted to hear your whole... Okay, listeners, this is a talk show. This is a talk radio. This is interactive, right?
This is where Scott and I discuss.
I want to hear your involvement. So Shane's got this great idea, and he wanted to tell me and tell you guys about how he's getting back into classical music.
Okay.
And that's creating a better balance for him in
my
his
brain's
life.
all over the place, Scott. You got to understand. I kind of go where it leads me.
And it's been creating more appreciation and gratitude for him in his life. And I was like, wow, that's a really good lead into this conversation. Yep. And he abandoned it. So if you want to call and scold him, feel free to call in and scold him.
I did not abandon it.
I want to know.
I was trying to find that lead in there rather than jump in. So let's just jump in. Okay, so this week... my wife brings to me, of course, the Facebook, say, hey, you got to look at this. This is amazing. So she shows me a clip of a concert pianist. I'm not going to try to pronounce her name because as she's from Georgia, over by Russia and whatever.
Okay.
And so she's this concert pianist, and she's absolutely amazing, blows me away. Now, I took piano lessons as a kid. My mom forced us to take piano, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Mom. And I've kind of stepped away from piano over the years, with busy life and so forth, and trying to teach the kids a little bit here and there about piano and some of the finer things in life. Because we, as preppers, we kind of tend to focus on the necessities, on the essential, upon survival. And yeah, that's a great hobby. You need to learn those survival skills. But I realized this week that, man, I missed classical music. So I really haven't been into that much over the past, couple years. It hasn't been a big neglect.
So you kind of wandered away from it.
So I kind of wandered away from it, as well as piano and practicing and learning those finer skills. Because when you get wrapped up in prepping, I think, at least for me, I'm talking about myself, that I don't see necessarily importance in those types of skills when it comes down to survival. And that's true. I think that's true. However, my life, like I say, quality of life, has definitely been lacking.
Well, I like to look at this scenario. Okay, we live in the Pioneer State, right? So pioneers founded Utah, right? They fled and they came here. And one of the unique things about that is I remember reading stories about the pioneers and how they'd get so far and they'd be forlorn, they'd be sad, they'd be distraught, they'd be exhausted, they'd have people injured, people sick and dying. And one of the most important things is they needed to have something light in the mood.
Right.
And so they'd have a dance or a social event.
That's true.
And they do that in every city that they built, everywhere they went. One of the most important things when they got here to Utah was building a community center type of building. And you can go up to, what is it called? This is the Place Park,
right,
and see some of that, right? Some of the things that they built originally, just to get that feeling of community, get that feeling of kind of an outside motivator to get them feeling alive
and get
again.
Your mind off of the heavier topics.
Yeah. And so I think that's what this show's primarily geared towards today is all prepping and no play makes for a very angry and frustrated person. Because you can get very self-centered in preparedness. And you can think, well, I've been working all my life for these things. These are mine. If anyone tries to take these, I'm going to destroy them,
absolutely.
Right? And I get that from about a third of the population that I talk to. They're very get away from me, I will destroy you type mindset.
Yeah.
I'm not, and that's kind of my national statistic, and it's my own made up statistic. It's not a true statistic, but it's just what I've experienced. There's a lot of people that are like, you come near me, I destroy you when it comes to preparedness. But there's even more, tons more, that are like, well, my job as a prepared person is to not be part of the problem, but to be part of the solution.
Right.
And then we take that and we say, okay, past that, what else are we doing? How are we creating a better community, a better culture? And I think that's where it goes to is finding things to really appreciate and enjoy. Appreciating classical music, enjoying that, appreciating fine art, creating. I like the idea of creating music and creating fine art better than appreciating, because I like to be hands-on. Good books. Yeah. Having a good library. Things that can take your mind and take it into fun new places. My wife teases me, but I really love sci-fi, and fantasy. I love the Harry Potter series. I'm all on board. I love it. And if J.K. Rowling, redials that and decides, hey, we're going to launch it again, I'll get that for my library too. But I also love the post-apocalyptic series. It's a little darker.
Yeah,
but I really appreciate that and I enjoy that, and it's for me. It's like for you, classical music. For me, not having to worry about anything, you just go read a book. That is awesome.
Yeah. Now, I totally agree with you there. I think one aspect I wanted to explore is and talk to you a little bit more about, because this is where Scott and I kind of work out our content. I mean, right here and live on the air most of the time. You're hearing us. We haven't discussed most of this before.
And we try not to.
Yeah, exactly. We want this to be spontaneous and
we'll hit all of our key points and then let it go.
Exactly. And so, what I wanted to kind of explore with you, Scott, is that what's wrong with that aspect of us preppers being so intense? Is there something wrong with that? So hear me out for a second. The concert pianist.
Okay.
The really dedicated concert pianist who is on tour, like this lady. Her name's Katya. I won't try and say her last name. Type her name in on YouTube, and she is phenomenal. She will play entire concerts, obviously without music. So much emotion, so much passion, so much skill and talent. It's just mind blowing. Especially when those of you out there have had taken piano lessons, and you can just kind of appreciate what skill it takes. Now, that kind of dedication is full-time dedication.
Yeah.
And we will get back into that more here after the break. So thank you for listening. You're listening to Prepper Talk Radio. And don't forget to visit Survival Medical at the Layton Sam's Club. And we'll see you right after the break. Okay, let's come right back in here. Thanks for joining us here on Prepper Talk Radio on K-Talk Media, AM 630. And, of course, our sponsor, as always, and I'll try to stop smacking my lips there. I noticed that. Is, of course, Survival Medical, survival-medical.com. They are at the, what did I say?
Leighton Sam's.
The Leighton Sam's Club.
So while you're out there getting your turkey, grab a couple packs. You can find their Alpha Bravo kits, their backpacker. I love the backpacker kit or the backcountry kit. Sorry, the backcountry kit stays in all of my bug out bags.
Yeah, I was going to say, start small. If you're hesitant at all, start small. Get one of the small kits, like the backpacker kit or on the fly kit or whatever.
Yeah, on the fly is great for fishing and just trails and stuff like that. But the backcountry small kit, perfect for your scouts. If you've got a Boy Scout on your list, put one of those in their stocking. They will thank you, because all the other little clamshell kits and everything else are bigger, they're bulkier, and they don't last as long. Mm-hmm. And you don't want your kit to be failing you when you're in dire need of having that kit.
Right. Absolutely. So go check them out. We're very thankful, again, on this eve of Thanksgiving for our sponsor.
That's kind of funny. I've never actually talked about Thanksgiving Eve.
Neither have I.
It's
so I kind of
Christmas Eve,
morning,
New Year's Eve.
It's again about mindset, right?
True.
Just being thankful, and like I mentioned before, I really try to be thankful. I may not express it to everybody around me, but I try to at least act that manner that I'm grateful, that I'm thankful for what I have in my friends. And
I'm grateful for the listeners. I'm grateful for this show, because it's actually given me an outlet to talk about things that I think are very important that this society needs more of. And we'd love to hear from you, the callers, you listeners. Join in at 801-254-5855. Tell us what you're doing to create a better balance and to kind of accent your life as opposed to just focus on preparedness.
Yeah, so let's get back kind of that balance. And we were talking about really what's the difference between a concert pianist and a prepper. They're both very intense. I mean, these
in one aspect, or
exactly
a few aspects.
In a very focused aspect. I mean, to be able to dedicate that mind power to memorize an entire concerto, I mean, is something I can't comprehend. I mean, it's I can appreciate it, but
part of it's muscle memory, though, right? They're doing Absolutely. It so often it becomes muscle memory. Same thing with prepping, muscle memory. You create habits. Mm-hmm. Habits become a muscle memory, right?
Yep.
And
same thing with your brain.
Yeah, same thing with your brain. It just becomes ritualistic. I have a really hard time if I hook the trailer up to my truck, not wanting to turn and go up the freeway to Clifton, Idaho, just because that's where I usually go when I hook the trailer up to my truck. Yeah, it's autopilot, and that happens, I think, far too often to all of us in our life. And we need something to kind of break us out of that routine, something to break us into another way of thinking or another way of enjoyment. And I think that's why classical music's great. I love classical music. I also love, for me, I love new foods. Mm-hmm. Discovering new foods, trying different things.
I need you to hang around my kids a little bit more, Scott.
Why is that?
Are the complete opposite that way.
Well, that's kids. Kids don't have the taste palate, right? My niece, all she'll eat are these silly little Lunchable, the pizza ones. Mm-hmm. That baffles me. Who wants a cold pizza?
Yeah.
And it's not even... I can understand a cooked cold pizza. Mm-hmm. You cook it, you put it in the fridge, and all the cheese has been melted, everything's good. But when it just crumbles and falls apart in your hand while you're trying to eat it, doesn't make any sense to me, and that's all the kid wants to eat.
So we get our blinders on, and we're not open to... Like you say, you like to try new things.
Yeah. And for prepping, I don't want to be an expert in one area. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to a lot of guys. Nice thing about being in this arena is I talk to a lot of guys that are hyper focused in one area and they're experts in one area, but they've got a lot of other things that they're not good at.
Yeah.
I like to be very well rounded.
Mm-hmm. And that's something we can talk about too. And now I've got all these questions floating around in my head for you, Scott. My first question is, for those of you who know me, do I come across as the concert pianist? Might. Do I only talk about prepping? Do I only, like this concert pianist, I would think before a concert you are focused on nothing else. And me, at least that would, I think it would be the same for me. Am I overly, and I don't think I am, overly zealous, I guess is the right word, about being a prepper, about helping people to, encouraging them, hey, you should, and giving gentle cues and nudges here, being as invasive as possible. Do I come across too heavily that way?
I think you do sometimes.
Yep.
As do I.
Mm-hmm.
I think anyone that's really focused on this does. I mean, I've had family members actually call me crazy and tell me that I'm insane for believing what I believe. I've had other family members that are like, okay, how do I do that? What do I do? And I've had friends and family that are like, wow, I didn't ever realize you were that into this. I knew you were into it, but I didn't know you were
take a step back and like, oh,
that into it.
Yeah.
So it's funny because, I mean, I lived in Arizona for a time. I lived in California for a time, and I was single those times. And so not having my own place, except for in Arizona where I did, and I had my food storage. I had tons of stuff ready to go. But when I was living in apartments with a bunch of other guys, it was like I was very limited in what I could do. I always had my 3-month supply of food as long as my roommates weren't eating it. But I had it, and I had some preparations. I had
and what do these guys come in?
Gallons
they come
of
in
water
with their stuff, their hobbies, their skis and snowboards and their whatever they.
Well, they'd sit there and play their Xbox until the wee hours of the morning, or they'd be on World of Warcraft and they'd lose their job because they can't break away from that. And then there's me that I'm just doing my thing, but it wasn't. For me, prepping was never an obsession.
At the time,
still isn't. It's part of just how I grew up. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here is that, okay, for this concert pianist, this has become her lifestyle. I mean, she'll be doing this till the day she dies because she loves it so much. I mean, it's obvious that she loves this, and I do love prepping, and I think I want to say I'm exceptionally good at it. I've got the right mindset for it. I've got the attitude for it. So is there really anything wrong with making that, and not enjoying and maybe missing out on some of these finer things like vacationing to Europe or something like that?
Yeah, never been.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, are we really missing out on those types of things in order to build up our preps, in order to become more prepared, in order to get out of debt? And here's something I wanted to bring up, and feel free to jump in, of course, Scott. I listen to Dave Ramsey. I'm sure a lot of you do as well. There's one thing he says is, if you live like no one else lives, later you can live like no one else. And I'm misquoting that slightly. He said, let me try that again. If you will live like no one else, later on you can live like no one else. And so I kind of apply that to prepping as well, in that, okay, if I make some sacrifices now, if I save a little more here, put this away, and prepare a little bit better, later on I'm going to live better on.
Yeah, and I think that's the key that he's getting to. If you're willing to sacrifice or make some changes now that will benefit you in the future, you're going to live so much better in the future as a result. But it doesn't mean you're losing your quality of life now. It means you're changing some things up. For example, I have some friends, really good friends. Every year, they'd make this huge focus to do this big, huge trip to this magical kingdom, right? Yep. I'm not going to throw out any names here, but that was their huge focus every year. And then they'd tell me, oh, we just can't afford food storage. I'm like, you spent $3,000
or more
on lodging.
Yeah.
Lodging just for that trip. Now you add in your gas, your food, and everything else. Yeah, you're going to spend food on your family wherever they are every week, right? When you're traveling, that food cost usually goes up by 3 to 5 times. So you look at that total trip, and they're like $5,000-6,000. If they make that trip a smaller trip and just go somewhere small and simple and local, or just spend that week together doing something fun, they could have saved 80 to 90% of the money they spent and used that towards preparedness. So then they don't have to fear, oh, what happens? What are we going to do if? They'd have that surplus. And in fact, they actually did that. These friends of mine, they did that. They live in Arizona, and they're like, we really need to just do it. And so one year they're like, okay, we're not going to Disneyland this year. We're going to do a small local trip. And they just went up to Flagstaff camping. And when they were done, they took all the money they saved that they would have put towards the other trip, that they'd been saving for the other trip, and they went and started getting their food storage and water storage taken care of. But the thing I want to point out is then they went back to their adventure the next year. That's what that family really did for their fun break from everything else. So I'm saying, don't just cut out the good things that you really, really enjoy, but be wiser about it. Live differently once so that you can appreciate it further in the future, but also be better prepared. And that's why we prep, is we want that better quality of life in the future. When everyone else is out searching to find food, I want to be able to say, oh, crack open that can or rip that bag open and we'll just reconstitute that, rehydrate that, or I've got these peaches I've canned that are sweet and tasty and amazing. I want to have that ready so that I don't have to try to go find food. So that everything that I have is as passive as a solution as possible, so I can focus more time in growing a better garden and learning better skills, but also helping rebuild.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, and we've got a caller here. Oh, and let's go ahead and take this. Let me turn this on first. Hello there. You're live. Do you have a comment for us?
Hi. Yes, you're talking about the difference in mindset.
Yes. Is this
the Patriot? Yeah, it's one of the aliases that I sometimes utilize. Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Sure. So you were talking about the Patriots that are preparing and are prepared to defend their stash and destroy someone who might come and get it. So that's been something I've seen for many, many years, and I think it's a topic that is uncomfortable to talk about, because when you have this food storage in a disaster and nobody else has it, the idea is, we need to talk around this problem, because most people don't want able-bodied people on welfare, just sitting around watching TV and having a party while everyone works. People don't like the idea of that, of having to work for others who are capable of working. So when it comes to food storage, it's a similar situation, that a person who has prepared themselves doesn't want to lose all that and then be put in jeopardy by people who did not prepare. The squirrels who save the nuts don't want all the other creatures who don't save to come take all their nuts in the winter. So they hide it. And so you have this problem. You have this tension where, well, do you store up enough food to save all your neighbors who didn't do anything, or do you fight and kill them? And if you were to ask me what I would do, I don't know. I used to buy extra food storage so that if I were in that situation, I would have more food that I could distribute while still having enough for myself. And I just don't know about that. That's such a difficult situation, because the people, and I'll shut up in a moment, the people who don't prepare, there is some valid argument that, if they didn't prepare, they shouldn't be able to take yours and now put you in jeopardy. That's valid. But at the same time, you don't want to have to kill people just to keep eating. It's a terrible thought. It really is.
But it's a really good point. I mean, it's a really, really good point, and it's poignant. I mean, that's something that people need to be thinking about a lot more than they really do. I've thought, okay, I've got a person that's close to our family that they don't prepare, and they've jokingly said, well, if something happens, I'm just coming to your house and I'll eat what you guys have, because
and they're serious about it.
And I have to turn around politely remind them that's not theirs. That's not their decision to make. It's just like, it's not my decision to go take their car and borrow it for a week without their permission. But yeah, that is a very, very good point. And the challenge is how do we address that?
So one of the ways that I'm... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, because my other point will switch topics a little bit, or not, switch directions a little bit, and I don't want to do that yet.
Okay, to answer that question, I've thought about this for such a long time, and it's such a terrible thought. I don't want to be this selfish person, and I don't even think of myself, and that's part of the tension, is, am I being selfish if I hide and protect my food? And I don't want to be that way, but I don't want to, at the same time, I don't want to completely be at risk now because of others, as I said before. But at the same time, I'm older now, and I don't know. I do believe in crossing over the other side and all that. So I'm not. While I'm not in a hurry to die, I'm not I'm kind of looking forward to it too. I've heard so much about it. I want to jump on the other side and have a look.
Yeah, I hear it's really nice over there.
Yeah. So there are all these different mechanisms in my mind. But as far as just being a survivalist, one of the things I'm looking at now, because I've had a bunch of different homes through the years, and I like to fix them up. But now I'm looking at adding, for the first time, I have a house without a basement in Utah, and so I'm looking at adding one to the back and extending it over, and it's south-facing, and put a solarium on it. So just some cool ideas. But I thought, I could actually extend this basement, create an invisible wall, and actually have a hidden space that wouldn't be readily recognized if someone were to enter the home and kind of ransack the home. So I could put valuables in there, and perhaps they wouldn't even know that it was there. So rather than killing them or fighting them and killing them or dying in the process, or giving it all up and being at risk as they are, the other option was to just sort of, hunker down and hide away from all of it till the smoke clears. But still, you want to be community oriented. You would rather have everybody. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can talk a little bit more about that on the other side of the break if you want to hold over. You're listening to K-Talk Media, Prepper Talk Radio. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to get over to the Layton Sam's Club to check out Survival Medical, or check out survival-medical.com. Thanks for listening. All right, we're coming back. We still have Mind Cleaner on the line here. And we want to continue on with this topic. And it's kind of helping us to switch gears. Of course, you're listening to Prepper Talk Radio, and our sponsor is Survival Medical, survival-medical.com, the only first aid kits designed to last 20 years or more. These need to be in alongside your food storage, along with your other supplies. It really does. Now, getting, I guess, back to where we were before, we're talking about, Mind Cleaner, you were thinking about building, I guess, essentially a bunker in your backyard. And that's another thing we want to talk about a little bit today, is about safe rooms and such, which, bunkers definitely fits in that class. But I want to explore a little bit more about what you're talking about this conundrum, this difficulty of sharing or not sharing. What do we do about our neighbors? And my first thought, and to chime in on your and Scott's conversation here, is that this is what we're doing. We're trying to educate people. We're trying to help, and that's one of the reasons why I feel like I'm so intense, is that I feel this need to spread the word and help our immediate neighbors, our immediate family, who we feel the most obligation to help. Right? I mean, if someone comes knocking at our door, we don't know them. It's going to be a much easier situation to say no. Right? Am I wrong?
Well, it'd be easier to not answer the door with someone like that.
Right, you don't recognize them.
Yeah, you don't recognize them, and I do that a lot. I do not answer my door just because somebody knocks on it. I actually use discretion, and if they're not invited and I don't recognize the face, sometimes I don't even care what they have to say, so I just ignore the knock and go about my business.
Yeah. My wife does that, but she does it with every knock. She just won't answer the door. I filter. I'm kind of like you. I'm like, I'll look out the window. I'm like, nah. If it's someone I don't know, if I can tell that they're a salesperson, I'm just like, nah.
You don't need to open the door and say no thanks. Just don't open the door.
Yeah, just move along.
So hunkering down and staying hidden is probably the easiest scenario, easy to answer, correct?
It seems like the easiest scenario. As far as my conscience goes, I don't know if it's the easiest, but at the same time, when I think about the nature of people, I think it's naive to think that we can get all our neighbors to go, prep, let's all prep, and then everybody in the neighborhood is prepping. Yeah,
no, you're absolutely right. It's definitely a tough topic to.
Well, see, unfortunately,
and if you look at the disasters that have occurred recently, even just going on the East Coast, you can see how it gets. That we've seen recently where the stores are depleted of food and people are getting desperate. We see in these other countries where their economies have been destroyed by the globalists.
Yeah,
we see people having trouble to get food in their stores, and they are getting desperate.
Mm-hmm. And when you're desperate, you'll do things you would not normally do. Mm-hmm. Especially think about when you're hungry. We live in such a world where we are so blessed here in the United States that we have this great abundance. And when we get hungry, it's funny how often people get angry if they're hungry, and we call it hangry. Mm-hmm. And they're a little less pleasant to be around, or they get cranky. now imagine that 10 times, 20 times, 30 times hungrier than that scenario, how people are going to respond.
I think he just identified the actual answer.
Yeah.
Without knowing it. The actual answer is to make this country great again, not to just, I started right on his coattails, but make America so that can't happen. I mean, get this country built in such a way that we don't run into those scenarios. Even worst case, even if we had a nuclear war and it just all came to a halt, yet somehow we still have the ability to, I think it would be amazing if the entire United States had some form of food storage as a distribution.
Oh, yeah.
Like if it were required by the food makers that, okay, every Safeway, every Walmart, every whatever had to keep, a 30-day supply of at least dry goods that could keep the whole country alive for 30 days or something like that.
Yeah,
maybe that's where the answer lies.
Some great ideas. Hey, Mind Cleaner, we're going to let you go. We've been missing a few calls here. Thanks for your call. Let's see. Caller, you have a question for us? You're on live?
Yeah, observation.
Yes.
When Israel under Moses was struck with some ailment, I think they had a lot of poisonous serpents or whatever. They were told to look upon Moses and his staff and live.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they thought that was foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those that thought it was foolishness died, yeah.
Anyway, anybody that sees the way things are breaking down and doesn't take some preparation, at least to the point of knowledge, the fact that grass is edible, the fact that tree that nobody likes, the Russian elm, Siberian elm, that's edible, those leaves. I mean, the fact, lamb's quarter, used to call it pig's weed.
Mm-hmm.
That's edible. It's one of the most ferocious weeds there are, and it's got a seed the size of a gray mustard seed, but a little black dot. But I mean, just a little simple knowledge might get them by.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If they refuse to,
but they are refusing.
Yeah, and
a great many are refusing because their mind's in other things.
Yeah, and exactly, absolutely, and you bring up some really great points there. I appreciate your call.
Anyway, thank you for letting me in.
Absolutely, thank you. And sorry about the other calls we missed here. Feel free to call in. And I think a lot of us are trapped into believing that we must behave like everybody else, right? I mean, that's...
There's this huge misbelief that our measure of a man or our measure of a woman is how we stack against someone else in what appears. Right?
So our lifestyle should be a certain way for this decade, for this time we live in.
It's a very misplaced belief of how we should be living. Mind Cleaner brought up the comment, make America great again. He's like, I don't want to jump on the bandwagon of President-elect Donald Trump there, but that's not his statement. Ronald Reagan used the same statement, right? And that's not his statement. It's been used multiple times, not necessarily in presidential elections, but it all stems back to we wanted to make America great. When the Founding Fathers created America, it was to make it great and to help create self-reliant people.
Absolutely. All right, we've got another caller here. Caller, you're live on the air. Did you have a question or comment?
Well, I wanted to add to what I said.
Oh, yes.
Mills has been pressing the fact that without potable water, we would die in a few days. Mm-hmm. And I would say, get a Boy Scout handbook. There's ways to get water, essentially, and to purify water with what's known as solar still, or to get water just from the moisture in the ground by simply knowing to use a piece, being able to bust a hole through the frost or whatever, open a little pit and put a piece of polyethylene over it and a drip pan underneath and a rock or something in the middle of the polyethylene to have it drip into the drip pan.
Yep.
I mean, there's all sorts of knowledge that will save people's skins if they cared, but they don't care.
And they're ignorant, and they've been told, we've all been taught that we don't need to learn these skills. We don't need these skills anymore because society has advanced so much that we have running water. We have all these niceties that we feel so spoiled that we should be grateful for.
People just don't understand how sophisticated the infrastructure has to be to provide those things.
And
I mean, what if the power's gone? Yep. What if the water doesn't flow? What if the sewers don't work? I mean, they think if we go back to being a primitive man that they can all survive. That's not the way it works. I mean, just being out in the winter at this latitude, you won't survive. But knowing that your basement will stay about 50 degrees without heat, if you have a reasonably insulated house and with just layers of common clothes, you can survive in that basement. But the fact that wheat, be it high protein red wheat or soft wheat, just wheat itself will sprout and provide the elements of life with a little moisture. The fact it can be ground, coarse grinding to provide cereal for cooked cereal. The fact it can be finer ground and rudimentally cooked into bread with natural yeast.
These are a lot of great truths you're just telling us. I mean, these are all fantastic. But
anyway, I see you're up against the clock here. But whatever. Hey, people don't care. They have no idea of how sophisticated society it is, and the fact that such things as an EMP weapon, which have been developed for 50 years, the Russians first found out about it, and we did with a high-altitude test in the Pacific. But, I mean, from way down in the Marshall Islands, I think it was, and their high-altitude test knocked out electrical circuits in Hawaii. But such things engineered for the purpose, I mean, up a few hundred miles will literally knock the United States power grid off the line. It'll knock communications out. Why? Because we have gone to a system that relies on the transistor, on solid-state devices, and these things cannot survive an EMP pulse.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, and thank you very much for your call.
North Korea is capable of putting this sort of thing up above us. But anyway, take care.
Yeah, thank you very much for your call. Great call. And I think one thing we really all need to realize is how, like this caller was saying, is that how delicate our system is.
We live in a very fragile environment, community more than anything. The environment is very anti-fragile. That's up to us to become...
The natural environment.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's
absolutely.
resilient. Mother Nature is a strong
very
element.
Resilient, very anti-fragile.
Anti-fragile. Yeah. And Cache Valley Prepper, awesome resource. He is one of the smartest in the prepping industry.
Gosh, he confounds me all the time.
He blows me away, so I'm grateful to know him, but he brings it always back to the basics of quality of life and making sure that you have a plan and that you have, skills and tools, but that you kind of build off of that. Everything is building blocks for him. And so, elementally, it always goes back to one solution for each thing. Having at least one solution for each thing, whether it's water, whether it's food, whether it's shelter. But also understanding that you're doing all of this not just to survive, but you're doing this to create a quality of life, to create a better scenario for yours and your loved ones than before. And hopefully that's to rebuild. Hopefully that's to create a new community, to bring back the values that we lost in the current society.
Exactly. What does constitute a quality of life? Is it constituted by electronics, by all these fancy gadgets for making life easier and more convenient, or is it the hard work? Is it the other spectrum of getting out and turning the dirt over and planting seeds? What constitutes quality of life? I guess that's up to each individual to decide.
Well, and if you want to take a scriptural approach, you look in the Old Testament, and Adam was commanded that by the sweat of his brow shall he eat all the days of his life, right?
No exception.
How am I any different? We've got to work. We've got to work differently now than back then.
All right, let's see if we can squeeze in one more caller. Go ahead. You're live. Do you have a question or comment for us?
Yeah, Bob's great, man. I like hearing him.
Yeah.
Good kid, man. Calling from Idaho.
Yeah, he had some great comments.
Fortunately, most people know that death is an imminent thing. It's well, that's what I say.
No,
by night.
Yeah, I
So
know.
we don't want to kill each other mostly.
No.
Now the
We all get there
people
anyway.
that are causing, damn right, people that are causing war are in it for profit, profit margin.
That's correct.
Not thinking that day after tomorrow, I'm going to be dead.
Yeah. Well, we've got about a minute left. Thank you very much for your call. I want to kind of wrap things up here, and
sure.
Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next time. And I guess what we really wanted to get out of this conversation is I'm thinking is that my question to you is there a group of people who are more grateful or more thankful than preppers? I mean, that's a question that came to my mind this morning. I think maybe not. So I will continue to call myself a prepper. I'll still continue to be grateful for everything I have. Thank you for listening to us. I'm grateful for our sponsors, for K-Talk, for the station, letting us come and talk on the air, talk your ears off. Thank you for listening. Please check out our sponsor, Survival Medical, survival-medical.com. The only first aid kits, tougher than nature. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for your calls and for listening.